Sir, sir,
Hmm?
sir, Rahul Gupta is trying to join this team. Can you please accept his request?
Where do I get that request here?
I
Hmm.
think in the team settings.
Anup, can you help me? किसी की रिक्वेस्ट को कैसे यहाँ पे participants and then
Sir, you have to go to the Teams channel.
Teams.
I mean, not the meeting, it's the channel.
Let me try to add him from add member. Rahul Gupta. Add. I have added him.
Okay, sir.
Okay, friends, so let me start sharing, and I welcome all of you, especially those from batch B. And before I start, let me tell you that I'll be focusing more on fundamentals, on basics. And at any time, if you feel there is any difficulty, anything where you are not clear, I'm going very fast, or there is something to be discussed, please, you can please let me know, or you can discuss with me afterwards. If you have the doubts, and even I can arrange extra classes as well. Maybe if you are comfortable, I can arrange the classes during off hours, means late hours. I don't mind teaching at 9 o'clock in the night or 10 or 11 o'clock. So those who are interested, if you have some fundamental issues, so I can always be contacted. So I go to my presentation now, the lecture, and we are going to start a new topic, rather the last topic, it's the last chapter. And in one way, this is the most important chapter, in the sense that whatever you have studied so far will be used in this chapter, and this is what you are going to apply in the field. Can you please respond am I audible or not? Yes.
Audible.
Okay. So now it is the shear strength chapter, and shear word is not new to you, but I will take the problems from the geotechnical engineering. So on the left hand side, you can see there is this was the soil mass, and then there was a failure, and soil has failed. When I say soil has failed, I have been emphasizing this word. Soil means soil mass. Soil mass means the entire assemblage of those tiny particles. So particles are not going to break. I have been discussing it in my class, that if you take a sand grain, it's not going to break. It is going to slide, it is going to rotate, it is going to uh, translate, and so on. So it is the mass which fails, not the grain. So these concepts we discussed initially. So here we want to go into the mechanics, how we can see what is happening, and from mechanics point of view, why the failure has occurred, and can we stop it. Idea is, can we stabilize it. Similarly, there is another example here on the right hand side, and you can see this entire soil mass failed, and it went down. For a layman, it went down. Now we as engineer, we have to think in terms of mechanics. So let us say this is the upper portion and this is the slope. I have taken slope example because it's very common, and nowadays you might have heard so many landslides during recent past. And this particular soil mass is failing, so it is moving in this direction. Now, from mechanics point of view, what you can think is that this particular mass on the right hand side, here it is stationary, and this mass is moving. So somewhere here there is some frictional force. I am saying frictional, there may be some cohesion force also. So there will be some frictional force which is going to develop, which is going to resist the movement of this particular soil. And the amount of that frictional force, we will be doing analysis later on. So maybe I will consider, let us say, one particular slice here, one body, and this body is kept on an inclined plane. And these kinds of the problems you have done in your high school or intermediate classes, that there is a body which is having weight, and then there is it is on inclined plane. The plane is having some inclination. How we go for mechanics is we resolve the weight, because weight is the cause here. There may be some additional force also. I'm going to resolve this weight. So there is normal component, there is tangential component. This tangential component is going to be responsible for making it slide, and this normal component is going to give you a reaction. You have been doing it, and from this reaction you are going to get a frictional force. So at that time you considered only the friction. Now we are going to consider cohesion also. We will be discussing. Mechanics is this particular component, I am going to call it shear strength. Shear strength means how much stress can the particular system here. It is a rigid body, so this is a different case. In fact, I gave you this example only to make the things clear. Otherwise, it's a different case, but the concept remains the same. So here I can talk in terms of shear stress. How much was the shear stress induced that comes from this tangential component, and how much is the maximum frictional force which can be offered, that is mu into r. Please remember, I have seen the students giving this answer. So suppose I say there is a body which is kept on an inclined plane. How much will be the frictional force here? So they blindly say mu into r. So it's not mu into r. The maximum value is equal to mu into r. So please remember that. If the tangential force is, let us say, if mu into r comes out to be, let us say, 10, and tangential force is 5 here, then the frictional force which is going to develop will not be 10. If it is 10, the body will start moving in upward directions. It doesn't happen. So it is the limiting value. So if tangential force here is 5, this will be 5. If it is 6, it will be 6. If it is 8, it will be 8. If it is 10, then it is 10. If it is 11, it will remain 10, and body is going to slide. So the maximum amount of the resistance which the soil can offer, that will be shear resistance, shear strength, and it's important to find out what the shear strength is, or what are the reasons, or what happens if there is something which causes decrease in shear strength. Say for example, when earthquakes are there, we will be discussing it later on. The shear strength reduces. Why it reduces, we'll discuss, but that results in these kinds of the things, because the strength reduces, and then it is going to offer you less resistance, and the mass is going to fail. So here I'm making a statement that soil generally fails in shear. So I have taken some example. I have already given you this example. Let me go back to the the slope stability analysis. So here it is failing in shear. So here also it is failing in shear. Here also it is failing in shear. The soil is so whenever you talk about the stability of the soil, you will be talking about the shear strength. Even if you load it in compression, then also soil mass, then it is going to fail in shear only. So I have shown you here some specimens from the laboratory test, and when the load was applied on this soil specimen, the failure was in this direction. So it is due to shear. You can resolve the forces. You can find out how much was the normal stress acting on it, how much was the tangential stress acting on it, and you can do that mechanics. Here also there is another example here. So there is shear plane. So soil fails in shear. Even when you are, this is a foundation example I have taken. This is a foundation, and earlier it was vertical, so it was applying load, and then it tries to fail, and again the soil mass tries to move in this direction, and soil is going to bulge. And this thing I have been discussing, that the soil is a discrete medium. It's not like steel, it is not like concrete. It has very tiny particles here, you can see, and when failure occurs, the particles will be sliding over each other, they will be translating, they will be rotating, so there will be rotation, translation, sliding of these tiny particles. And this is the average shear plane, and you can see the shear plane is not going to be exactly a plane, it will be a rough surface depending on the grain size. If the soil is very granular, it is having very good solid grains like granite, coming from granite, then these roughnesses will be very high. So there will be rough surface. If it is having a clay kind of the material, then this roughness may be very low. So even if you load it in compression, the failure is in shear. And also I told you that it is the soil mass which fails, it is not the soil grain. So if you take an assembly of grains here, this is the assembly of grains, aggregate, and I put some load. So when I put a load, even if I am putting a compressive load, then the failure plane will be passing somewhere here. Depending on, you can do this analysis. If I give you what is the shear strength of this particular material, you can resolve this weight. You can find out how much is sigma n and how much is this component, because they both will depend on the force and angle. So you can check corresponding to this tangential component and this sigma n, how much was the resistance offered, and then you can keep checking. If you keep on increasing this force, there will be a situation when both of them, means the component which tries to make it slide and the component which is trying to make it stable, they will be equal, and beyond that failure is going to occur. So it is not going to fail in compression. Like you might have seen concrete cubes, if you might have tested them in the lab. So concrete cube, you can consider almost elastic and continuum. So then they fail because of the crushing. The cube itself breaks. So it's not going to happen here. The soil grains are not going to break. Second thing is, if there is some tensile stress, everybody knows what is tensile stress is, when the force is trying to open it up. So let us say the force direction is this, and from your general perception, you can very easily say that the soil grains are not going to have any tensile strength. There may be some small force of cohesion between the particles. You know, the particles may be sticky, and small amount of cohesion will give you some. So if these are the two particles, I'm trying to separate them apart. So if there is some cohesive force here acting between the particles, then very small amount of tensile strength it can give you, otherwise it doesn't give you tensile strength. You might have tested the steel bars in your solid mechanics course and you have found steel gives you a lot of tensile strength. So soil does not give you practically zero tensile strength, we say. So cannot offer any resistance against tensile forces. And what is the mechanics? How we look that failure has occurred or not, or it is going to occur. So we are going to calculate what is called as shear stress. Everybody knows shear stress. If you have this body and if I apply a shear force here, shear force, then yeah, sometimes the definition of stress also people do not know. When I apply a force on an elastic body, the body gets deformed and there is internal force which develops against the external force. That internal force per unit area and limiting value delta A tending towards zero, that is called as stress. So stress is equal to, you know, your definition from high school. So it is del F upon del A and A tending towards zero. So force upon area and area tending towards zero. So that is, and stress is internal component. Practically, when we solve the numerical problem, it's only force upon area. That is true. So force upon this, it is acting tangentially. So force upon area is going to give you shear stress. Similarly, when the body gets deformed because of this shear stress, again, I find very interesting answers. To you people sometimes forget what you studied in your high school. Shear strain, if I ask you what is shear strain, there many times I find student giving me the answer that shear strain is equal to this deformation divided by total length. No, shear strain is an angle. It is this angle, this angle, this angle. So how much is the change in distance here divided by this distance? So this angle in radian will be shear strain. Its units are radians. You may represent it in degrees, etc. So coming back to our discussion here, shear stress you have to find out acting on the plane, and I'm saying potential failure plane because when we do the analysis in advance, we do not know where the failure is going to occur. So you can take all possible failure planes, and wherever the critical condition is satisfied, failure is going to occur there. So condition of failure will be that the shear stress will be more than the shear strength. And limiting condition will be when shear stress and shear strength both are equal. And we are going to use basic principles of theory of elasticity and mechanics of materials in this course. But at the same time, we should remember that soil is not perfectly elastic. So our solutions will be approximate solutions. Soil is not a perfectly elastic material in the sense that if you compress this body of soil mass, the soil particles are going to rearrange themselves. And when you remove the loading, the deformation, the body does not come into its original shape. You have seen it in previous chapter when we were discussing consolidation. At the end, when you remove the entire load and do the unloading in the consolidation test apparatus, so there will be expansion of the soil mass, and that expansion is very low as compared to the compression. So it's not perfectly elastic material that we should remember, though we will be using the theories. Now, some refreshing of your basic mechanics principles. So maybe today I'll be focusing on this only. And remember the convention, contrary to what you might have done in your steel courses or other courses. In our case, in geotechnical engineering, because the soil cannot take tensile stresses, it can take only compressive stresses. So it is customary that we generally consider compressive stresses as positive. So maybe I will not be telling to you again and again, but you have to remember it. If I am saying there is a confining pressure of 50 kPa. So it is understood that what I mean is 50 kPa compressive. So please remember it. And in your second year course, I think you might have studied in detail how you can find out shear and normal stresses on any inclined plane. Suppose there is a body, three-dimensional body, and in x direction, stress is sigma x, sigma y here, sigma z here, and there are also shear stresses acting here, acting here. You can resolve these stresses, and you can find out at any oblique plane on any incline what is the normal stress at that particular plane and what is the shear stress. So these things you might have done, and when you analyze those planes, you will find there are three typical planes which we call as principal planes. These are the planes on which shear stress, there is no shear stress. So tau will be 0. It will be 0 on these planes. Only sigma n will be there. Only sigma normal will be acting. So there will be three mutually perpendicular planes. So these planes are called as principal planes, and we are going to call them major principal plane. And the stresses which this normal stress which act on that principal plane is called as principal stress. So for the major principal plane, the stress will be major principal stress. So this sigma 1 is the normal stress. So it is sigma n acting on that plane, and tau will be 0 for that plane. There will be an intermediate principal plane. So I'm saying that our convention is compressive stress is positive. So if there are three stresses, 10 kPa, 20 kPa, and 50 kPa, and I'm telling you that these are the principal stresses, then 10 will be sigma 3, 20 will be sigma 2, and 50 will be sigma 1. So these are the stresses. And also from your basics, you know that if I want to know strain in any direction, epsilon 1 will be equal to 1 upon E. I have given this equation. So here sigma 1 minus mu times sigma 2 plus sigma 3. So these expressions are already known to you. Nu is here Poisson's ratio, and E is modulus of elasticity, keeping in mind that they are not strictly applicable, but we still use for the sake of simplicity. And results are approximate that should be there in our mind. So as far as your course are concerned, you can very comfortably apply these equations. So we should be able to find out these stresses, and I'm not going to derive these expressions. We have taken a 2D general case where sigma x is acting in horizontal direction, sigma y is acting in vertical direction, and let us say the shear stresses are also acting. So this shear stress and this shear stress magnitude, they will be same. And for this case, you can find out the principal stresses will be given by this expression, half of. I hope you can derive these equations, and in your strength of material course you have derived these. So this major principal stress and minor principal stress are given by this expression, and tau max is given by this expression. It's very easy to use what is called as Mohr circle, and I hope that the basic theory of Mohr circle is known to you. What we do on the x-axis, we plot sigma. I prefer to write sigma n always here, and on the y-axis we put tau, and then the Mohr circle is a circle. You can mathematically prove that every point on this circle represents the stress state. When I say stress state means if I take this point x coordinate and y coordinate of this point represents the normal stress and shear stress on a particular plane in this body, on a particular plane. And so what you do is, this you have done in your second year SOM course, I think. So they have plotted sigma x is the x coordinates and tau xy is the y coordinate. So I get this point sigma x, and sigma x is this value from here to here. This is sigma x, this is the origin, and tau x is this, y axis is tau axis. And sigma y I plot here. Sigma y is they have taken sigma y is smaller here, so sigma y is here, and tau xy on that is negative as per their convention. So you get this point, and then you get this circle. Once you get this circle, you can get its center, and then any point you can find out what is the stress, and there is what is the normal stress and shear stress on these points. You can find it out, and you can also find out the angle. Now in soil mechanics, I'm going to use a special case of this particular problem, and many a times we will be coming in the situation where we will be starting with here in the previous case, you started with a general case where on a plane sigma x was acting and tau xy was acting, on perpendicular plane tau y and this tau y, sigma y and tau yx were acting. In our case, the most of the times we will be doing analysis in such a manner that to us the principal stresses will be known. So from mechanics point of view, let me first give you the example. You might have seen the retaining wall. So let us say this is a retaining wall, and it is having, this is the soil mass. When you go from our department towards the geotechnical engineering lab, on the left hand side you will find this situation. So if I take a soil element here, if I take a soil element here, it is having some vertical component of the load acting from top, and it will be having some reaction. So these two will be major principal and minor principal stresses. We are assuming that there is no shear stress, no resistance is being offered here. Shear stress is 0. What at the moment you can remember is that we will be having this special case to start with, and we will have to find out at a particular plane what is the normal stress and what is the shear stress. From a numerical point of view, there is nothing very special here. This was there, so that was a much more complicated case. Now I put it equal to 0. Now only sigma 3 and sigma 1 are there, and let us say there is a plane at an angle theta in this body, and we want to know what is the normal stress and shear stress. Please remember the convention. So I have assumed that sigma n is acting in a compressive direction and tau n is acting in downward direction here. So the rest of the things are simple. I'm taking one unit dimension perpendicular to the plane of the screen. So if I resolve all the forces normal to EF, so this is what I do. You can do it the way you want. For me, it looks to be much more convenient for me. So what I do, resolve all the forces parallel to the desired plane and perpendicular to the desired plane. So this is perpendicular to this is perpendicular to this. So this angle I suppose will be theta. And here also I think this will be theta. Please correct me if somewhere I am wrong. And then simple mechanics. So the force which is acting on EF is sigma n, is the stress into area is EF into 1. And that force, because the body is in equilibrium, should be equal to the force which is acting on the plane EB. So on plane EB, sigma 1 into EB into 1, this is the force which acts in vertical direction. And its component in this direction is cos theta. So that is it is in opposite direction. So this will be positive here on the right hand side, and then plus sigma 3. Now this force into sigma 3 into FB into 1. So this is the force and its component sine theta. So it's not a very big thing for you people. You have been very good in mathematics. You will have to be reminded. I'll keep reminding that thing, that you should remember what you people are. So coming to this equation, so sigma n is equal to sigma 1 cos square theta plus sigma 3 sine square theta. Then there is a simple equation you have to use. Cos 2 theta is equal to 2 cos square theta minus 1, or 1 minus 2 sine square theta, and put them, and you are going to get this expression. I expect you to remember this expression, and I will also tell you one simple way of remembering it, but you should remember this equation for your exam. And remember what the convention is. What is theta here? Theta is the angle in anti-clockwise direction from the plane on which sigma 1 is acting. So sometimes you will get confused. If I make sigma 3 here and sigma 1 here, then you have to take correspondingly the theta angle as if you want to use this equation. So please remember what the convention is being used here. So I get the sigma n value, the formula for sigma n value for a plane which is inclined at an angle theta. Now similarly, I'm resolving the forces now in this direction parallel to plane FE. So tau into Fe into 1. So this force is in this direction. Please keep checking. I might be wrong somewhere, because sometimes we take it granted that I am right, unless our student tell us, no sir, you are wrong. You should tell us wherever we are wrong. So tau into EF into 1, this is in downward direction. And I think I have done correct. Sigma 1 is here. So sigma 1 into EB into 1, that is the vertical component, and its parallel component will be in upward direction. So it is opposite to the previous one. So it's okay. And similarly, sigma 3 into FB, sigma 3 in, now this one, so this comes sigma 3 into FB into 1. So this force is in this direction, and then its component in parallel to this, and now this direction is same, so I have to put it negative. So it comes over here, and again when you take, here I forgot to tell you, EF you have to take on this side, you know. So when you take EF on this, so EB upon EF, I forgot to tell you, though you know it. So EB upon EF is equal to how much? EB is here, EF is higher, here cos theta. So this became cos square theta, and here it becomes FB upon EF. So FB is here, and where is EF? EF is here. So this is sine theta. So it became sine square theta. Now in present case, EF I am taking here. So EB upon EF. So EB upon EF. This is cos theta. So cos theta into sine theta here, and similarly here also FB upon EF will be sine theta. So cos theta sine theta here. And again sine 2 theta is equal to 2 sine theta cos theta, and I'm going to get this expression. So this is the second thing which I have to remember for my exams here. It's not very difficult, simple. Now I can get these from the Mohr circle, and before that let me see what Mohr circle is. So this is what we have already proved on our previous slide. Only difference I have made here is that I have taken sigma 1 plus sigma 3 by 2 on the left hand side. Purposely I am making right hand side here sigma 1 minus sigma 3 upon 2 into cos theta, and here right hand side is sigma 1 minus sigma 3 upon 2 into sine 2 theta. The reason is I am going to square and add these two equations. And when you square and add, then sigma n minus sigma 1 plus sigma 3 by 2 whole square plus tau square, and sigma 1 minus sigma 3 by 2 whole square, and then inside bracket you get cos square 2 theta plus sine square 2 theta, that becomes 1. Now this particular equation is the equation of a circle, because sigma n is nothing but x. So x minus something, x minus a square, and tau is nothing but y. So x minus something plus y square is equal to, and this becomes the radius. This is the very simple equation for the circle. So what is the center of the circle? X minus a is here, sigma 1 plus sigma 3 by 2. So that is the center of the circle. What is the y coordinate? So the circle equation is x minus a square plus y minus b square. So b is 0 here. So it is y is equal to 0 here. And radius is, this is r square. So radius is sigma 1 minus sigma 3 by 2. And it's very easy and simple to remember this this circle. So what I do, I plot sigma 1 here. Now please compare it with respect to the previous case. That was a little bit complicated, and you have already done that complicated thing. Here it is very simple. I'm not having tau here, so the sigma, this one point will be here, another point will be here. If I go back to the previous slide, sorry. What we did here was we plotted this point and we plotted this point. You should be able to plot this circle. We can give you this problem in the exam, that plot this Mohr circle, and then we join it, and then we get the center, then the radius, and then we draw the circle. Same thing I'm going to do here. So this is one point, this is another point. I join them, get the center, the radius, and draw this circle. And any point on this circle is going to represent stress state. So let us say if I want to know the stress state at an angle theta, please remember what our convention is. So from plane on which sigma 1 is acting, I'm taking angle theta. So when you have to correspond with this figure, you have to make this theta to theta. That is the thing you have to remember. So suppose you want to get at 30 degree, here you have to use 60 degree. And you have to, here we started with the plane where sigma 1 was acting, and here also this is the point which is representing the plane where sigma 1 is acting. We will start from here, and then from here we will plot angle 2 theta. And once I plot angle 2 theta and then take this point, and now theoretically you can check. You can check this value is sigma 1 plus sigma 3 by 2, because this is sigma 1, this is sigma 3, and this value is radius into cos of 2 theta, and radius is equal to here sigma 1 minus sigma 3 by 2. So automatically we are getting the same thing. Sigma n is equal to, the x coordinate will be equal to sigma 1 plus sigma 3 by 2 plus sigma 1 minus sigma 3 by 2 times cos 2 theta. So I get the sigma n coordinate. Similarly, the y coordinate, if I talk about of any point, if I talk about this point, then y coordinate is equal to how much? The radius into sine 2 theta. Radius is sigma 1 minus sigma 3 by 2 into sine 2 theta. So even if you forget this expression, as at least as far as this soil mechanics course is concerned, you draw this and it will be very easy, and you should remember always this. So if I take a point here, so if I take theta is equal to 45 degrees, so theta is equal to 45, that means 2 theta is 90, so I'm going to reach this particular point. So at this particular point, the shear stress is going to be maximum, and there will be some normal stress. If I keep on increasing the theta value, and if I keep on increasing, if I put theta equal to 90, so I'm going to reach this point. That means from starting from here, when you put theta equal to 90, from this plane, you reach this plane. So remember, we are talking in terms of plane. So this is the plane where sigma 1 was acting, and this is the plane where sigma 3 is acting. Tau is 0 at both these planes. These are principal planes. So this way, we are going to use these properties later on. And one more property here which we will be using, that is the pole. It's a simple case here. So suppose we take a point P here at this point and join it with any point M whose coordinates are sigma n and tau. And now you know the property of the triangle of the circle is that this is this particular arc from here to here. It is subtending 2 theta angle at the center, and at any point if I take here or anywhere, if I take on the periphery, the angle it is going to subtend will be half, that is theta. So this angle will be theta. So PM is going to make theta with x-axis. So you should remember this point. Pole is a point from where if a line is drawn parallel to plane EF. So suppose there is a plane EF on which we know what are the if a line is drawn parallel to plane EF, the intersection with circle gives normal and shear stresses at that particular plane. So the point is that suppose I give you P and P is known to us. I want you to tell me what are the stresses on this point, this plane. Let us say this plane is at an angle psi. So what I am going to do, I am going to make angle psi from here, and this intersection is going to give me the stresses on this plane. So we have to remember this property of the pole. Pole is the point, and its property is that you draw a line from this plane, originating from this plane. So it is also called as origin of planes. So a line originating from this point and parallel to the plane is going to give you the coordinates of the Mohr circle. Means the coordinates of the Mohr circle are going to give you stresses on that plane. The reverse is also true. Suppose I give you the stresses on a particular plane, and from that stress point means sigma theta, and this is given, and if I draw a line parallel to the plane, then I'm going to get pole. So it's better. You should remember this pole also. So what you have to remember, that it's a point, and from there if you plot a line parallel to any plane, then the intersection of that line with the Mohr circle is going to give you the stresses. We will be using this property later on, so please remember it. Now, all these things you have already done, so we are now coming to the shear strength of soil. Little bit I am going to discuss today. Soil is a discrete medium that I have already told you. So let us start with an experiment, and that experiment is called as direct shear test. You are not here. Had you been here, you would have conducted this test. I would like to spend some time later on. Maybe I'll show you some video clips. So what I do here is I have filled up this shear box with the soil at that particular density, and I'm assuming that this particular soil is representing the field condition. As it is in the field, it is here. I am discussing at the moment philosophy. So actually how we conduct it, we will discuss it later on. So philosophy is that I am going to apply some normal force, let us say 10 kPa, 20 kPa. So one value I am going to apply on the top of this soil sample. So this is the soil sample. Its dimensions are known to you. It's rectangular. So perpendicular to the plane of slide, there is some dimension. And you have applied the normal force. And as you know, when you apply the normal force, the soil is going to compress, and it has to reach an equilibrium, and I'm assuming that if the water is there, it is freely draining. So water has drawn out, or it may be a case where the water might have not squeezed out. So that theory you already discussed. I can ask you after how much time, how much degree of consolidation is going to occur, and that problem you can solve. So suppose entire stresses have been transferred from pore water to the soil grains, and sigma n is applied. So normal stress, I can calculate that normal stress in the beginning of the test. Now what I do here is there is an arrangement here. We will apply a force, which I'm calling as shear force. And when you apply a shear force, now this will start moving in this direction. So there is some arrangement. We will be keeping it fixed and moving the upper half. So upper half is moving, so shearing is going to occur along this plane. This is the plane on which shear is going to occur. And please note, the contact area is also going to change, because as movement occurs, small movement is occurring and there is some small changes here. So the contact area between the upper half of the box and lower half of the box, the contact area of the soil is going to change. If it is very small, you can even neglect it, but generally we calculate that changed area also. So shear will take place along the horizontal plane, and you will be calculating how much is the contact area. So I can just give you a hint here, though I'll not be giving you the answer. So let us say initially this dimension is L, and there is delta L change here, and you can and perpendicular in this direction, let us say the dimension is B. Generally it is same. So let me keep it same also. So let us say L. So what will be the corrected area? So corrected area will be only this much you have to take. This is the area in contact now. So L minus, so this total is L minus delta L into L will be the corrected area. Anyway, so that's a minor thing. And depending on this contact area, the normal stress is going to change, and shear stress also you are going to calculate based on this corrected area. So what I'm saying is find the normal stress, okay, normal load we are keeping constant, N1 we are keeping constant, and also shear stress based on the corrected area. And then plot shear stress versus horizontal shear displacement plot. So we plot it like this. So this is for N1 value. On the x-axis, I'm writing horizontal displacement. And here I would like to tell you that please write it horizontal displacement. I have seen students writing shear strain. What they do, they divide delta L by L and they call it shear strain. Please remember, it is not shear strain. Shear strain is something else. Shear strain is this angle. This is gamma. This is delta L. This is delta L. This is L. So shear strain is not this. So this does not give you shear strain. It is horizontal shear displacement. Please be careful here. And correspondingly, shear stress is going to change. So what is going to happen as you are pulling it? So the displacement is going to occur. The shear stress is going to increase, and then it is going to reach a peak value, and then it is going to decrease. So we have some arrangement here which reads this force. We have the arrangement which reads this horizontal displacement, and we can plot it. So this is the peak here. This peak, as per our definition, this peak gives us the strength, the maximum value. What is the time? Can anybody tell me exactly what is the time? कितना time रह गया? 53. Okay, I'd like to finish at 55 so that you have 5 minutes break. So what I do is I plot it, and then I can get this peak value. Corresponding to this peak value, I know the corrected area, I know the normal stress, and I can also calculate the shear strength. So please note, I am using a term shear strength and shear stress. So during this test, one test, there were infinite number of shear stresses. Right from here to here, there are infinite number of points which you can take as shear stress. Shear stress is a variable. It's something else, zero here, then starts increasing. So there are infinite shear stresses. But shear strength is only one value. So this is the maximum value which can be mobilized. So shear strength somewhere I think I might have written here. Yeah, maximum shear stress is that stress that can be mobilized on a particular plane in a soil mass. So I am going to call this peak as the shear strength. Now what I do, I increase it. Initially I took it, let us say 1 unit, then I take it 1.5 unit and 2 units here. So when you next increase it, uh, repeat the step, you are going to get shear stress versus shear displacement curve. So here you get the peak, and then you take another point, another test, another peak, another test, another peak, and so on. So finally, what I do is then I plot what is called as failure envelope. I want to know what is the relationship between the normal stress and shear strength here. So I have plotted these points, point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, point number 4. And then I can draw a kind of the variation which is going to occur here. So I'm drawing actually if you plot it, it will be something like this. Okay, it will be a non-linear kind of the curve. But for the sake of simplicity at the moment, what we do is we split a straight line only. And we assume that, okay, this straight line is giving us how the failure is going to govern. What is the relationship between the strength and normal stress? So draw coordinate for failure points. So draw for all coordinates, you draw these points and fit a straight line. And this straight line is called as failure envelope. At the moment, we are using only straight line, and this particular failure envelope we are going to call Mohr-Coulomb failure envelope. Let me stop here. I would like you to ask me some question if there is any question, and then we will continue with this. Maybe I had two, three, no, this was the last slide. Okay, but I'll take some time to discuss it. So any question so far you can ask me. Yes.
सर जो मोहर फेलियर ये कर्व है इसमें जो मतलब शेयर स्ट्रेस ले रहे हैं ये फेलियर पॉइंट वाला शेयर स्ट्रेस है ना, शेयर स्ट्रेंथ नहीं है ना वो?
हाँ, शेयर स्ट्रेंथ ले रहे हैं, शेयर स्ट्रेस तो इनफाइनाइट होंगी। तो मतलब जो इनिशियली आपने शेयर स्ट्रेस का मतलब वो तो यहीं से मिल जाएगी, इस वाले ये वाला कोऑर्डिनेट देखिए, यहाँ से शेयर स्ट्रेस डायरेक्टली मिल जाएगी। आपने ऑलरेडी उसको करेक्ट करके तब प्लॉट किया हुआ है। और जो नॉर्मल स्ट्रेस आएगी वो नॉर्मल फोर्स आपके पास है जो आपने लगाया था डिवाइडेड बाय व्हाटएवर इज द कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग एरिया। सो हियर एक्चुअली दिस शुड बी स्ट्रेंथ। हम यहाँ पे स्ट्रेंथ प्लॉट कर रहे हैं। इट इज ए जनरल थिंग बिकॉज आई एम गोइंग टू डिस्कस what happens if a point in the field is here, if a point is here, if a point is on this line. So if the shear stress is this much, shear stress is this much, or shear stress is this much. So we are going to discuss that next time. Is that clear? So इसमें हम लोग shear strength plot कर रहे हैं.
Okay, sir.
Any other question? If there is no question, let me so you can discuss with me what are the problems. Okay, I'm leaving the meeting now.